I'll be speaking to Barbara Fair, a longtime activist on prison issues and the lead organizer of Stop Solitary Connecticut. We'll be speaking about a possible roadblock on what is an exciting bill, an exciting law that would eliminate solitary confinement as we know it, and one that has a good number of influential sponsors among the political leaders. Good afternoon.
Hi, how are you, Stan?
Good, good. So what is the name and number of the bill in question?
It's Senate Bill 1059. Senator Winfield is the sponsor.
Mhm.
And so far we have 29 co-sponsors. We're
That's
very
great.
excited watching that list grow.
And is it named the Protect Act?
Yes, that's what we call it, the Protect Act.
Okay, good. So if people call their legislators, they can, if they forget the number, they could say that. And
Yes, the
people would
Protect
probably
Act.
know
Yeah,
that.
most legislators, I'm assuming all probably should know it by now.
All right, so let's start with the news, the possible problem. What is a fiscal note and what is it saying?
Fiscal note is what, say, Department of Corrections, we're asking them to do some work. And so what they do, they'll put together some kind of a budget and they'll send that to appropriations and say, this is what it costs to do what this bill, this piece of legislation wants us to do. And so they put together a bill and appropriation looks it over to get some kind of accounting of how much it's going to cost to do the work that we're asking them to do.
And it was quite a piece of change, right?
Yes. When we go by the Department of Corrections, they're saying it's going to be $15.1 million that it's going to cost. And no, sorry. We're saying that they actually saved $15.1 million. But the Department of Corrections is saying it's going to cost $18.3 million to $21.4 million for the fiscal year 2022.
So they say, well, you'll have to be more personnel and maybe more construction and stuff like that. But I took a look at the note. I'm not an expert on it, but it didn't talk about that it would save anything if you got rid of some of the onerous solitary confinement.
Right. They don't talk about that, but just the fact, like solitary confinement goes on in a lot of the prisons, but just the fact they're closing down Northern, which is the supermax, that in alone is saving 17.5 million. Now, of course, a lot of that money is staff. And so those staff are not going to just, leave the job. They're going to go into other facilities. So we can't say just closing Northern is really saving all that money. And I think the biggest part of the fiscal note that the Department of Corrections put together, which is what we're going to be responding to at our press conference, is the fact that they're saying they have to hire between 45 and I think 60 more correctional officers to be able to do this work. When the reality is the Department of Corrections staff have been way over the national average. And so, and then with decarceration in our minds, we're going to have an even lower prison staff. Incarcerated staff. So we won't need more people. We'll need less people as we stop incarcerating so many people.
And if there's less people suffering this solitary confinement, I would assume there would be less problems in prisons.
Definitely. And we talk about the financial cost, but the psychological toll of putting people in isolation like this for 22, 23 hours a day. And that's not even talking about the abuse that goes along with it, like putting people in cages and chaining them up like 23 hours a day in a position where they can't even sit up straight. So all that abuse that's going on, those are leaving scars on those people. And if anything, it makes them more dangerous because they're more angry, they'll be more violent, they'll be antisocial. So when you just think of the psychological cost to our communities as these people coming back to our community in that shape, we can't even put a price tag on that.
Right. So what does it change about the rules of solitary confinement? It doesn't say that you can never put a prisoner by himself for any length of time, but what does it say?
Right. What we're trying to do is follow the international Mandela rules, which say torture is having someone in a cell for 22 hours a day. And so what we're asking for is to at least follow, and these are the minimum standards, 22 hours a day. And so no one should be in for 23 hours a day. That's actual torture according to United Nations. So we're saying that torture has to end. Shackling people inside of their cell has to end. The random abuse has to end, and that people have to be treated in a more humane manner. And we're asking that all of these facilities that hold people for 22, 23 hours a day need to let people out. So it'll look more like we're rehabilitating people as opposed to just simply warehousing them.
Now, I'm sure you must have heard people complain that you want to treat hardened criminals with kid gloves. They would take advantage and make chaos out of a prison. What do you say to that?
Well, people will always come to those outrageous stories and make a broad brush like this is what prison is like. The majority of people in prison are not these violent rapists, murderers. That's not who's filling our prisons. Many of our prisons are filled with people who have addiction problems, who have mental health problems. They have drug offenses. That's what the bulk of our prison system is. Now, when you put them in these conditions and send them back out into the community after you've abused them, yes, now you're going to have more violent offenders because this is what you produced. You produced these monsters. And so that's how they justify, doing the stuff that they do. But no, most of the people in there are not these violent offenders. We're not saying treat them with kids' gloves. We're saying treat them humanely. If we have any humanity, we need to be treating people with that humanity, or we lose our own.
Now, the law refers to something called ombuds. What's that?
That's because we know that systems like this that don't have oversight tend to, their power just gets crazy. They just do all kinds of things because no one's looking. So we want to have an ombudsman, which we had in Connecticut, and it ended, I think, around 2007, 2009, claimed by budget. But we need to have that because without that, the prisons are just out of control. The abuse is out of control. And so if we have somebody independent of the system that can come in and talk to the incarcerated people, check out any claims, complaints they have, and try to reconcile them with the Department of Corrections, that will go a long ways in the millions, and I mean multi-millions of dollars in lawsuits that Department of Corrections has to pay out, which is our state. Taxpayers have to pay out because of the harm they've done to others.
And I saw one thing about letters and phone calls that I thought was pretty cool, in that you read these stories about prisoners having to pay enormous amounts of money to make a phone call or get a stamp or something like that. What does the law say about that?
Well, actually, this session, it looks like we're going to have a bill. It's not our bill, but there's another bill that's going to provide free phone calls. I'm not sure how that's going to happen, but for me, like when we have public hearings around the enormous amount of money people spend on phone calls, it's in the state is benefiting millions of dollars every year. And that doesn't go back into the communities and doesn't go to help the incarcerated people. It actually helps with, say, telecommunications for state workers. And so with all that money being, and it also pays for like probation officers, parole officers, things that the poorest people in the system should not be responsible for paying for those
And then
things.
they can't contact their families and get
No.
that kind of good reinforcement.
Right. And then on top of that, when they get out of prison, should they be fortunate enough to, win a lottery or something, or get maybe some inheritance, the state will send them a bill for their incarceration. I think the rate now is $200 a day that they pay for that. They put a lien against anything, lawsuits, anything that they may get. They put a lien against them for $200 a day. And imagine that after you've been abused and caged like an animal, that they actually charge you $200 a day for that treatment.
Well, final question. If people want to support this bill and help win its passage, what can they do?
Well, a lot of that's been going on is writing your emailing your legislator, making calls, especially calls, because if you can get their personal numbers, that's most beneficial, because the state's been closed down, so it's kind of hard to reach them. But writing op-eds, and the most important thing is just showing up at events where we're pushing this bill, because showing up makes a huge difference when we're trying to get the legislators to see how important this is to people in the community.
And these events are on the website. Am I right? It's Stop Solitary Connects, stopsolitaryct.org.
Yes.
Okay.
If they go on that website, the first thing that comes up is a petition to the governor. And once you sign that petition, you automatically go on our email list. And so any events that we're doing, you'll be getting an email. And when you go on that website, you also see all the things that we've done, all the people who've been supporting us along this journey. So you get a lot of information if you go on that website.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Take care.